Okay, folks, you're very welcome back. Thank you very much indeed for coming back promptly. And we try and get things off on time because lunch is the next break, and that's important. So the next session is on just introduce John Shaw as CIO from Kingspan, and then it'll be Eamon Williams from the Aviva, and then Dennis Norden from Hanley. And just to briefly introduce Kingspan to you, it's a very large Irish company with over 6,000 employees across 80 countries. So, you know, with a turnover of revenue exceeded 1.7 billion across 4 product groups. So a really substantial operation based here in Ireland. And I'm going to hand you over to John Shaw, the CIO of Kingspan. He's going to chat to us about information technology and data in this context today. Thank you very much indeed, John.
Thanks, Conor. So, what I'd like to do is explain what we've done with ISO 50001, but in the context of our business. And to do that, I want to talk about our company, our products, and our plans. And I'd like to leave you with 3 thoughts at the end of my presentation. Firstly, to show you that Kingspan is the world leader in energy efficiency solutions. Secondly, that it's digital technology that's driving energy management excellence. We're at that age where our awareness of energy efficiency is happening at a time of great IT change, and I'll talk about some of the big changes we've seen, that we're all seeing. And then finally, a piece on sustainable cloud, which we see as an emerging area of interest for our company and probably for many organizations here as well. So to talk about this, I'll start by talking about our vision as an organization, the drivers for change, the approach we took for ISO 50001, what we see emerging up to 2017, and then a little bit more on that question of sustainable cloud. So just to start with our vision as an organization. So as I said, we're in the business of energy efficiency solutions, and across the globe, the transition to sustainability is well underway. When we look at EU legislation, when we look at what's happening in North America, similarly, and when we look at what's happening in China, where China is driving an amazing price crash in solar PV and indeed in wind turbines, which is percolating across to Europe and North America. We're all benefiting from that. But the big drivers for this change are, you know, fourfold. Climate change, this incredible growing demand for energy across the developing world, the consequent rising price of fossil fuel, and in Europe in particular, energy security. Just to take those in turn, in the summer of 2007, Lewis Gordon Pugh swam 1 kilometre at the North Pole and didn't die and wasn't eaten by a polar bear. But what's really surprising is that you could do that you could actually swim. And when you look at the historical minimum ice extent at the North Pole, prior to 1980, it was about 16.8 thousand cubic kilometres. It's now down to just 20% of that number every summer. So something very dramatic has changed in our climate. The Earth's air conditioning system, indeed, is starting to break down. So we can't deny it. You know, the carbon dioxide concentration in our atmosphere, highest ever. You know, it's long before our species evolved that it was higher than 400 parts per million. Exploding demand for energy. You look at China. Last year, China added 100,000 megawatts of new electrical energy generation capacity to its grid. Germany's grid is 86,000 megawatts. So China added Germany to its grid last year. It'll do it this year, it'll do it next year. And between now and 2030, China and India together will add at least 23 Germanys. And there simply isn't the fossil fuel around to make that happen. When you think then of the rising fuel price, in 1997, oil was $9 a barrel. And in 2007, 10 years later, it was $147 a barrel. It peaked at that price just before the global recession kicked in. So that was a 16-fold increase in price. And our minds refuse to allow us to imagine that happening again from the current price of about $110 a barrel. When you think of security of supply then, while we have a very sophisticated natural gas distribution system across Europe, courtesy of the Russians, we lack an equivalent sophistication in our electrical energy distribution. So we're dangerously dependent on you know, import. If you take the EU as a region, we're dangerously dependent on importing natural gas from various regions that are politically unstable or otherwise a problem for Europe. So consequently, Europe has put in place the 2020 directive, and other changes. So we're starting to see all of these things impact. But as the Chinese might say, crisis what crisis? And it's interesting that when you write the word crisis in Chinese pictographs, you have to write the pictograph for danger beside the pictograph for opportunity. So quite fascinating that the Chinese would see an opportunity in danger. I think that's true for all of us. There are always opportunities in times of great change. Dr. Mark DeLucci of University of California has written a very good paper on all of this, where he shows that there is no economic nor technological reason why the world can't be running on exclusively renewable energy sources right now. The barrier is political. And when he published his study on this in the IEEE Spectrum magazine about 3 years ago, inevitably there were those who would challenge him in the subsequent letters to the editor. But his rebuttal to them was in some ways even better than his original article, and I'd encourage you to follow up on this guy. He's quite a fascinating thought leader on the technology change that's underway. So to talk about Kingspan's success, last year our revenue was just shy of 1.8 billion euros, and we are this year in our 6th year of growth in sales across the globe. You might be familiar with us for certain products, but just maybe to give you a run through what they all are. We have 4 product sets, the biggest of which, at nearly 60% of our sales, is insulated panels. And this is where you have highly thermally efficient expanded foam sandwiched between 2 metal layers. And the external metal layer is pretty much available in any color, texture, or finish possible. A recent innovation is the move towards integrated solar PV with that product. And we're now expanding that product into North America. Photograph shows the Jaguar Land Rover main factory over in England, where we've recently completed a big project for them. The second product, about a quarter of our turnover, is the same as the first, minus the metal layers, and is typically used for cavity wall insulation or underfloor or attic insulation. Our environmental division, which is about 8% of our sales, has about 8 different products, and these include things like micro wind generation, solar tube, rainwater recovery, and then finally our raised access floors. As the name suggests, it's a product used in data centers and in office blocks throughout the world, about 9% of our sales. From an innovation point of view, right across our 4 product sets, we have new products coming through, and 3 of these are heavily dependent on data. So inherent in the product is the sense that it's a smart product, and that's in response to the demand from our customers for information. So hence the theme of my speech here today is that, you know, you can't really get more energy efficient without data. That's a clear message from a lot of the exhibitors as well. So then when you look at our revenue and where it's coming from, about 35 to 38% of our revenue comes from Britain, a similar percentage from the rest of Europe, and the balance, the 25% that remains, comes from across the globe. Only 4% of our revenue comes from Ireland. Now, we have 62 factories across the globe, and we operate between factories and sales offices in over 85 countries. Just to show you some of the places where we operate. So it all started in Kingscourt, County Cavan in 1970, when our founder and chairman, Eugene Murta, set up the company. But now we're right across the globe, and we see in all these various markets the pressures that our customers feel around energy efficiency. So the drivers for change, what I'm getting at here is more to do with the drivers for change coming from the consumerization of IT. So we're seeing this amazing thing happen where there's a push for energy efficiency at a time when IT is becoming infinitely more accessible. And if you think about the major disruptive changes of the past, aqueducts allowed Rome to grow to 1 million citizens 2,000 years ago. Steam engines opened up North America, price of staple foods crashed, and of course electricity changed our life. What Gartner talk about, a leading researcher in the IT sector, they talk about how there is indeed a nexus of 4 disruptive IT forces underway right now that we all have to think about. A multiplication effect of how social media, mobility, big data and cloud are all happening concurrently. So IT, the big changes in IT are not been driven by the traditional big ticket systems. The big change is coming from consumerized IT. And indeed, when you think about how that affects our business, or any business, Most of our customers make their decision without meeting us. They have already checked us out, if you like, online. And cold calling simply doesn't work anymore. This is data from LinkedIn. LinkedIn have 300 million regular subscribers, probably representing the target customers for all of our businesses and all of our activities. And then there's a sense that maybe we need to think about becoming a digital master in each of our organizations. The idea that not only must we be operationally excellent through IT internally, we must also offer that level of excellence to our customer experience. So how easy is it for your customer to deal with you? How do they get to know about your product, your service, and the value that you bring to the table? And hence the concept there of the digital master. So when you think about our company and the journey we're on, we're in the business of sustainable building products. We're operating globally, growing fast. So IT for us is a big deal on those two dimensions of the digital master journey. So starting about a year ago, we took a hard look at our IT to see how can we make something that is inherently an internally focused thing into something which is customer focused. The IT department in your organization can no longer ignore the reality that your real customer is the external customer, not the guy screaming for his mouse mat. It's the external customer that we have to think about. So we put in place a journey to achieve this. And the idea at the start was to think about what position is the IT function in our company. So in many organizations, the IT function is a cost center. It's a grinder. The idea being to grind IT into the sand, when in fact what we need is a more entrepreneurial approach. IT, technology being a strategic enabler for the organization, especially an organization like ours, which is seeking to be a market leader and in high growth. So it's a different way of thinking about IT. To go about this, we chose a methodology from Intel, which looks at how you would go about improving your IT function across 4 key vectors, about how you manage IT for business value, budget, capability, manage IT like a business, a maturity model. And that was a very revealing exercise to say, well, where are we now? Where do we need to be in the context of what I just said? So we set about a journey then to get some basic things in place. So for us, the energy management system certification to ISO 50001 is part of a journey to get our digital world in control. So we went through a journey to tighten up our processes on security and service and business continuity and indeed quality. And energy management is an integral part of that journey. So, as I said, something that would have been seen as a back office function, IT, is becoming a customer-focused operation. So the approach then that we took, specifically in our company, leading change is never easy. And earlier, the speakers talked about this, how it's difficult to get buy-in, it's difficult to get engagement. So what we did was we took something that we could get a quick victory on. So we looked at our head office, which is where we co-locate with our Global Innovation Centre, and said, right, that's the scope, that's the footprint we're going after for the energy management system. And we thought, well, what we want is a carbon negative building. We want to become a carbon negative corporation. We've planned to do that. But let's look at ISO 50001 in the context of our head office and look at real-time energy monitoring and also, walk the talk with things such as electric vehicle charging. So we identified 6 different elements to this plan around our generation and consumption of energy and of other resources such as water. So I mentioned earlier about our solar PV solutions. So we have that on our head office building. This is a great way to massively change the electrical usage footprint of our business. Similarly, in addition to generation consumption, we moved to LED lighting in our large innovation lab, which is a very high ceiling, and reduced our electricity bill there by about 75%. I mentioned data management and the digital aspect of this. So we have the data presented in real time. We're using Intel Quark technology for data collection and Microsoft SharePoint for the presentation layer. So it's available to the executives and to all members of staff. And of course, as I said, we have 82 locations. We operate in 85 countries, so we have to deploy this across the globe in turn. But it's good to have something working, something tangible, a result, as they say, that we can show everybody else. Because otherwise, it could become a boil the ocean project. And after 19 years of fatiguing efforts, everybody gets tired, you know. So you're better off, as I say, get a result. So bringing the data to life is a key part of this strategy. So we've only recently attained the standard. We worked with Certification Europe, who assessed us, audited us, and we're only live a month now with the standard. But the work in advance was about a year in duration. We actually, along the way, used 8 different Kingspan technologies to build this solution, and this is very much a case of, you might say, eating our own dog food. So, you know, use our own technology to demonstrate how we would put this solution together, bring it into real time, use that as a template and as a model for the other operations around the globe. And then part of this was, of course, communicating to our internal stakeholders on the consequences of this and the benefits of this. So in terms of looking at the 2013 data, what's the carbon dioxide emission offset in ways people can understand, in terms of gallons of petrol for their car or other metrics. And it's also about continuous improvement. So we're continuing to drive on this. We've just gone live with our electric car charging points. Our CEO, Gene Murtagh, recently bought a Tesla car, electric vehicle. He can charge that at the workplace as well as at home now. And other members of the staff are buying electric vehicles. So we're encouraging. We're walking the talk. We'll be deploying our new model Kingspan 15 kilowatt turbine on the site, first one in Ireland, and also our heat pumps as well, which is another interesting technology. So looking then towards 2017, what are the things that are changing? And Jeremy Rifkin talks about the third industrial revolution. He talks about how the internet and renewable energy combined represent a new thing, distributed capitalism. So the 5 forces he identifies in his book are radically changing how business gets done. So as I said, we're not really talking about energy efficiency in a vacuum. It's happening with all of these other major changes happening with IT that enable things we couldn't have talked about 5 years ago. Indeed, in the past, it was all about function over data. Systems were isolated. People didn't worry about IT security the way they would have to now. But in the future, it's data that drives function. So the data, we make decisions with data, but we need data in real time to make decisions. So the big ERP systems are being replaced with apps, a nimbler approach to IT. It's very relevant in our sector. When we then look at the Internet of Things, within 3 years, half of all the microprocessors in use will be in the fabric of our environment, smart products. 16 billion connected smart devices within only 3 years from now. So just to finish on the point of sustainable cloud, so just as internet and energy efficiency are happening at the same time, we talk about sustainability at a time when cloud computing is a hot topic for all of us. We see a world in which the big data centers needed for cloud will be inherently sustainable, and we've laid out a 5-point plan. Our approach here is very much to focus in on the sustainable building aspect and the sustainable energy supply. They're the 2 areas we're particularly interested in. But we recognize that it's part of a wider change in industry for this to occur. So we then seek to influence and ally ourselves with like-minded organizations. So in summary then, Kingspan, we're the world leader in energy efficiency solutions. You can't really talk about energy management excellence without talking about digital technology. And we believe sustainable cloud is on the way. Thank you.